Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a peaceful day today.
Hello, everyone.
Please
And before
remember
we
to
begin,
like and subscribe on
please
YouTube
like this
so
story
others with the same
and
interests
subscribe
can
to our
access this
channel.
content.
It truly helps this little community reach the right niche of listeners who enjoy gentle, healing dramas. Today, we'll sit with one of those Christmas nights that doesn't come with big gifts. It comes with small moments that heal you. But tonight, as Tu Tien tries to breathe through a sudden worry, Jack's hands don't leave her, not even for a second. And just when the house feels quiet again, Mr. Dung arrives with that gentle smile that always means one thing. Jack has a plan that might bring the whole family closer, or stir up one sweet nervous surprise Tu Tien never saw coming. The gate creaked softly as Jack guided everyone back into the yard. Min was asleep against his shoulder, his little mitten pressed to his cheek, like he decided his own hand was the safest pillow on earth. Jack walked slow, careful, the way a man walks when he's carrying something fragile and precious. At the same time, Tu Tien stayed close beside him. She kept one hand resting lightly over her chest, as if she could calm her own heartbeat through the gentle weight of her palm. The Christmas lights they'd just seen in town still flickered in her mind. Beautiful, yes, but too bright, too loud, too full of eyes that didn't always look kindly. Even after they'd left the crowd, her body still held the noise in its muscles, like it didn't quite believe it was allowed to unclench. Anna tiptoed in first, like the house was sleeping. She whispered with exaggerated seriousness that Mom Loy would be happy, but also Mom Loy worried. And Tu Tien managed a small smile even as her chest tightened. Children have a way of naming what adults are trying to hide. Jack didn't ask twice. His gaze kept returning to Tu Tien's face, reading her the way he always did, like her silence had sentences inside it. "You're pale again," he murmured. Tu Tien shook her head too quickly. "I'm only tired," she insisted, the way people insist when they're trying to keep worry from becoming a real thing in the room. Jack didn't argue. He simply hooked 2 fingers around her sleeve, a quiet promise not to let her drift away. Tu Tien held onto that tiny touch like it was a rope. Sometimes, that's all a person needs. One small point of contact that says, "I'm here. Stay here with me." They stepped inside, and warmth wrapped around them. Wood smoke, ginger, something sweet baking. The house smelled like someone had been guarding comfort all evening. It should have been enough to soothe her, but Tu Tien's nerves had learned bad habits. They kept watch even during peace, as if peace might be tricking them. Mom Loy appeared instantly, as if she'd been waiting by the door the whole time. Her eyes scanned Anna, then Min, then Jack, and finally landed on Tu Tien. The smile on Mom Loy's face softened into concern. "Sit, right now," she commanded, taking Tu Tien's hands and pressing a palm to her forehead. "Cold hands. Your body is talking and you are not listening." Tu Tien tried to laugh it off. "The lights were just bright," she said. "That's all." But Mom Loy moved like a woman who had loved people through too many storms to accept "I'm fine" as truth. She guided Tu Tien down to a chair and didn't release her hands until Tu Tien stayed put. Jack laid Min carefully on the sofa and pulled a thick quilt over him. Min didn't wake. He only shifted a little, mitten still near his cheek, mouth relaxed in sleep. Jack watched him for a second as if he was counting blessings, then turned back to Tu Tien. He crouched in front of her, voice low, gentle but steady. "Tell me the truth," he said. Earlier, when that woman spoke, Did it hurt you? Tu Tien's throat tightened. It wasn't only the careless words about old clothes, about women who didn't belong under bright lights. It was the old feeling behind them, the one that made her want to shrink and disappear. Fear had a way of dressing itself up as shame. She looked down, ashamed of a fear she didn't choose, and whispered, "It wasn't her. It was the old feeling, like I was small again." Jack's jaw tightened, not at her, but at the world that had taught her that reflex. His thumb brushed her cheek with a tenderness that felt like a shield. "You don't disappear in this family," he said. "Do you hear me?" Tu Tien nodded, eyes stinging, and for a second she almost believed it fully, until a soft engine sound hummed beyond the gate. Not loud, not threatening, just unexpected, like a knock in the middle of a prayer. Jack's head lifted instantly. Mom Loy paused with a tea towel in hand. Anna's eyes went wide as if Santa had taken a wrong turn. The room held its breath. Jack stepped to the window, looked out, and the tension in his shoulders loosened into relief. "Mr. Dung," he breathed. Before anyone else could move, Mom Loy had already opened the door. Cool air rushed in, and Mr. Dung stepped inside with a calm smile, carrying a paper bag and a small box tied neatly with string. He moved like someone who never rushed, because he always planned ahead, like time itself listened to him. "I came late," he said warmly, "but I didn't come empty-handed." Mom Loy tried to scold him. Why didn't he call first? But her voice betrayed her softness. Mr. Dung only smiled, slipping out of his coat like he belonged. "If I call, you will worry. You will clean. You will pretend you are not waiting," he teased. "Better I just arrive." Mom Loy's cheeks colored. "You always talk like you know my heart," she mumbled. Mr. Dung answered so gently that the whole room seemed to quiet around it. "I do. I've been listening to it for years." Tu Tien watched, surprised by the warmth between them, the kind of affection that didn't need to announce itself because it had already lived through seasons. It wasn't showy, it was steady. It was the kind of love that says, "I'm here, even when the day isn't pretty." Mr. Dung greeted Tu Tien with respectful kindness. He told her she'd done well taking the children out, because new beginnings needed new memories. Then he set the paper bag on the table. The smell of roasted sweet potatoes and warm chestnuts rose like comfort. Anna gasped like it was treasure, whispering that it felt like a Christmas movie. Mr. Dung chuckled. "Exactly," he said. "We need some movie feeling in real life." Mom Loy disappeared into the kitchen and returned with ginger tea for Tu Tien and a bowl of porridge she'd saved. Refusing any argument, she placed it down with the same seriousness she used when she locked the gate. "Eat," she said. "Drink." Tu Tien obeyed, because sometimes care is easier to accept when it comes as an order. The ginger warmed her throat. The porridge settled her stomach. It didn't erase the fear, but it gave her body something solid to hold on to. Mr. Dung reached into his pocket and pulled out a soft scarf, not fancy, just warm. He held it out to Mom Loy with an expression so sincere it made her pause. "I saw it and thought this color matches your mourning," he said. "And you always forget to keep your neck warm." Mom Loy tried to protest that she wasn't a child, but Mr. Dung stepped closer and draped the scarf around her himself, adjusting the edge with careful fingers that lingered just a second too long to be accidental. The room changed in that small moment. the way it always does when love is shown without noise. Jack politely looked away, checking Min's blanket. He didn't make anyone feel watched. He just kept the house gentle. Anna leaned toward Tu Tien and whispered far too loudly, "Mom Loy has romance." Tu Tien almost laughed, then covered her mouth because tears were already rising, and Mom Loy cleared her throat, embarrassed, telling everyone to stop watching. Mr. Dung only smiled. "Let them watch," he said softly. "Children need to see gentle love. It teaches them what to accept and what to refuse. I've lived long enough to notice something. Loud love can fill a room, but gentle love changes a person's posture. It teaches you to stop bracing for impact." In that scarf moment, Mom Loy wasn't being rescued. She was being tended to, the way you tend a fire so it doesn't die out. And Tu Tien, watching, didn't have to translate anything. She could simply witness it. Two grown people choosing softness, until her own heart remembered that tenderness doesn't always come with a price. Not in cash, not in shame. The words landed inside Tu Tien like something meant just for her. She blinked fast, gripping her cup. In her first marriage, love had not always been gentle. Seeing tenderness treated like something normal felt like a lesson she wished she'd learned sooner. Near the doorway, Jack and Mr. Dung spoke in low voices. Tu Tien couldn't hear every word, but her nervous system reacted anyway. Men whispering, plans forming, secrets hanging in the air. Her fingers tightened around the warm porcelain. Jack noticed immediately. He glanced at her with a look that was almost a promise. "Trust me." Mr. Dung's voice stayed calm as he told Jack everything was ready and the timing was good, but that Tu Tien seemed shaken. Jack nodded, saying tonight would stay simple. No pressure. Mr. Dung answered, "A surprise should feel like a blanket, not like a storm." Tu Tien heard that word, surprise, and her thoughts sprinted ahead. Is Jack leaving again? Did the doctor call? Is something wrong? Fear has a talent for borrowing tomorrow's pain before tomorrow even arrives. Mom Loy came to sit beside her, and as if reading the tension in her shoulders, whispered, "Don't worry. When Mr. Dung and Jack plan, it's usually to protect you, not to hurt you." Tu Tien tried to breathe. "Sometimes my heart runs ahead of my mind," she admitted quietly. "Then let us hold your heart until your mind catches up," Mom Loy said, squeezing her hand. Tu Tien stood to take her cup to the kitchen, trying to do something normal. But after 2 steps, the room tilted slightly, just a soft sway, nothing dramatic. Still, it was enough. Jack moved instantly. He caught her elbow and guided her back down, as if he'd been waiting for her body to ask for help. "No more standing alone tonight," he said with calm seriousness. Tu Tien's eyes filled, embarrassed and grateful all at once. "I don't want to be a burden," she whispered. Jack knelt beside her like her fear deserved respect. "You are not a burden," he said. "You are my home. And when home needs care, we care. That's it." Mr. Dung watched quietly, then nodded once, approving. There was something about that nod, like a father giving a silent blessing, like a man who'd seen enough life to know what matters is not the grand gestures, but the steady ones. Later, when Min was fully asleep and Anna's eyelids were heavy, Jack turned off the harsh overhead light and left only the warm lamp glow. The whole room softened. Even the shadows seemed kinder. Mr. Dung placed the small string-tied box on the table and untied it. Inside was a simple wooden ornament, hand-carved, a tiny house shape. It wasn't shiny. It wasn't expensive. but it looked like someone had made it slowly. With attention, Tu Tien leaned forward, and her breath caught when she saw the names etched carefully into the wood. Tu Tien and Jack, and beneath them in smaller letters, Anna and Min, and one last line left blank. "What is this?" she whispered, fingertips trembling as if she might break it just by touching it. Jack took a slow breath, the kind he took when he was trying not to overwhelm her. "It's for our Christmas tree," he said quietly. "Mr. Dung helped me because I wanted to do it right." Mr. Dung added gently that the blank line was for what comes next, something they would choose together when the time felt right. A word, a date, maybe a promise. It would be decided as a family, not rushed, not forced. Tu Tien stared at that empty space like it was a miracle, a place reserved for a future she still feared trusting, a place saved inside a family she still feared was temporary. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "You made space for me," she whispered. Jack nodded, voice soft but unshakable. "I'm not just loving you in words, Tu Tien. I'm building you into my life where no one can erase you again." Mom Loy wiped her eyes quietly. Anna, half asleep, murmured that they were the tree family, and Mr. Dung smiled at Mom Loy with that same steady tenderness. Mom Loy, without thinking, reached for Mr. Dung's hand under the edge of the table. Mr. Dung laced his fingers with hers as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Simple, private, but real. Tu Tien saw it, and something in her chest finally relaxed. Not because fear was gone, but because it wasn't the boss of the room anymore. Love had evidence now. Love was sitting right there, with a scarf and a carved house and two hands held quietly under a table. Jack waited until Tu Tien's breathing steadied, then helped her stand and guided her toward their room. At the doorway, she paused and looked back at the living room. Mr. Dung and Mom Loy talking softly about tomorrow's breakfast, laughing like the world wasn't heavy for a moment. Min slept under his quilt. Anna's head leaned to one side, eyelashes resting on her cheeks. Tu Tien leaned into Jack and whispered, "I used to think Christmas was for people who were lucky. Now, it feels like it can be for people who survived." Jack pressed his forehead to hers, and his voice was so close it felt like warmth on her skin. "Then let it be ours," he murmured, "one gentle day at a time." And as the last light went out, that little carved house sat waiting on the table, waiting for whatever comes next, waiting for the next chapter, while Tu Tien finally allowed herself to believe that this family was not temporary. Tu Tien returns from the town light still tight, and Jack keeps a steady touch on her as Mom Loy orders her to sit. Mom Loy brings ginger tea and porridge and won't accept "I'm fine." Jack asks about the careless words outside, and Tu Tien admits they revived the old feeling of being small. A soft engine hum brings relief when Mr. Dung arrives carrying roasted sweet potatoes, chestnuts, and a string-tied box. He teases Mom Loy, wraps a warm scarf around her neck, and says children need to see gentle love. Hearing the word surprise unsettles Tu Tien, and a brief dizzy sway makes Jack insist she won't stand alone tonight. In the box is a hand-carved house ornament etched with Tu Tien, Jack, Anna, and Min, plus one blank line for what comes next, chosen together when ready.